So the first thing I went ahead to do was to draw my starting line, and from there I'm going to take my half length, which is 16 inches, my hip depth of 25 inches, and the full length of this jacket, which is 30 inches, and I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches for the hemming allowance. And after doing that, the next thing I went ahead to do was to input my shoulder measurement, and from that point I came down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I went ahead to input my neck width of 3 inches, and I'm going to be connecting from my shoulder slope to my neck width like so. And after that, I'm going to go ahead and take 1.5 inches for my neck depth, and I'm going to be connecting it to my neck width like so. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to determine my chest line, right? So for my shoulder slope, I'm going to be coming down by 8 inches for my armhole line, right? And I'm going to be extending the line outwards like so. Then on that same line that I just drew, I am going to take my shoulder measurement of 8 inches again, and I am going to connect it to my starting line like so. So that is going to be my armhole line, right? Now I'm going to come to my shoulder slope, and I'm going to measure all the way to the end of my armhole line, and I'm going to find the midpoint. Then I'm going to go in by half an inch on that midpoint. Then I'm going to come back to my chest line and mark my bust measurements, and I'm going to connect those 3 points, that is from my bust measurement to the midpoint of my armhole to my shoulder slope like so. Then I'm going to go ahead to mark my sewing allowance of 2 inches, right? Now to give this some sort of shape at the waistline, I am going to measure whatever it is I have on my chest line. On my chest line, I have 11 inches. So I'm going to bring it to my waist and minus 1 inch from it. So on my waist, I am going to mark 10 inches instead, and I am going to connect it like so, right? Then I am going to come to my hip line, and I am going to mark my hip measurement, right? Then I'm also going to add extra 2-inch sewing allowance, okay? So whatever I have on my hip line, I'm going to bring it to my hem line also, and I am going to mark it like so. Then I'm going to go ahead and connect all the lines together. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and cut it out, right? And while cutting, I'm going to be adding my half-inch sewing allowance on my shoulder slope and my armhole area. So after cutting it out, I'm going to be using my pins to secure it, because I'm going to be using this to cut another exact pattern. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2, and I placed my bodice on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut around it like so. So when I get to this my armhole area, I am not going to be cutting on the exact armhole that I have on my bodice. I am going to be extending it by about half an inch, because my front armhole and my back armhole are not the same, right? And after that, I'm just going to go ahead and keep following the pattern of the bodice like so. And after doing that, this is what we have, okay? So the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and set the one underneath it aside. That is going to serve as our back bodice, okay? And we're just going to work on our front bodice now. So now from my starting line, I am going to come down to my bust point, which is 10 inches, and I am going to be marking it on the center front fold area like so, okay? And after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and connect it to my neckline like so, just like you are making a V neckline, okay? After doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and cut this through. So please pay close attention to how I'm going to be cutting it, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and cut out this V neckline area, okay? After doing that, I'm going to go ahead and open up the center front like so. And after doing that, this is what I have, and I have 2 pieces for my center front. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and join it to the back bodice. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to bring my back pattern and place it on my front pattern with right sides facing. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and sew up the shoulder area by 1/2 inch. So I've gone ahead to sew up my shoulders, and this is what it looks like. I also went ahead to overlock it as well, right? So the next thing I'm going to do now is to go over to my sewing machine and sew up the sides by 1 inch. Then I'm going to come back to show you guys what it looks like. So after sewing up the sides, this is what I have. Okay, I also went ahead to overlock it and I ironed it also, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out my sleeve, and to do that I am going to go ahead and measure what I have on my armhole area. So after measuring, I had 8.5 inches, so I'm going to be using that to cut out my sleeve. So here is the fabric I'm going to be using for my sleeve, and I'm going to be cutting the 2 sleeves at the same time. So my fabric is folded into 4. Okay, so now the full length of my sleeve is 26 inches. So I'm going to be placing my tape at the tip of my fabric at 26 inches like so, and I'm going to be marking it out, and I'm going to be drawing a straight line like so. So that straight line is going to serve as my starting line. Okay, now from my starting line, I'm going to go ahead and mark 5 inches for my bicep, and I'm going to be connecting it with a straight line. Okay, I have a more detailed tutorial on how to draft out your sleeve pattern, and I am going to be linking it in the description box below. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is on my bicep line, I am going to go ahead and input my armhole measurements. Okay, and from there I am going to be connecting it to the tip of my starting line like so. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and measure that line that I just made, and I'm going to divide it into 2. Okay, then I am going to mark the midpoint like so, right? Then I am also going to divide the lower part of that line like so, right? I'm going to divide it and I'm going to make a mark there. Okay, then I am going to come to the midpoint, that is where I divided the line into 2 initially, and I am going to come in by 1/2 inch like so, right? Then I am going to go to the other mark that I divided into 2, and I am going to go out by 1/2 inch, and I am going to connect the lines like so. Okay, so now like I said earlier, I am going to be linking a detailed video in the description box below if you don't understand what I did here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and measure what I have on my armhole curve line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place my tape and measure like so, just to make sure that I have my exact armhole measurements plus some sewing allowance. Okay, so I have about 10.5 inches, which is more than enough for me. I can just go ahead and trim off the excesses. Okay, so I am going to be working on the hem of this sleeve, right? So on the hem of the sleeve I have 15 inches, and that is all I am going to be using for this sleeve. Okay, but for the actual sleeve that is on the thumbnail, you can use about 20 to 25 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to connect from my armhole down to the 15 inches like so, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, leaving 1/2 inch on my armhole area like so. So after cutting it out, this is what I have. I'm just going to go ahead and notch the center of the sleeve like so. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and take my armhole measurement. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and sew from that point all the way to my hem like so. Okay, and after doing that, I'm going to go ahead and hem the sleeve also. Okay, so I'm going to head over to my sewing machine to do that now, and then come back to show you guys what it looks like. So after sewing up the sides and the hem area, this is what I have. I also went ahead to overlock it and I ironed it as well, right? So the next thing I'm going to do now is to attach it to my jacket, right? As you can see, I already fixed one part of the sleeve, right? So now to fix the sleeve on the other side, I am going to pick up the sleeve and I'm going to place it on my jacket, right? Making sure the right sides are facing, and I am also going to make sure that the stitch area is aligning as well, and I am going to pin it down like so. Okay, then I'm going to flip it over to the wrong side to enable me pin it properly like so. so just follow what I'm doing. You can see what I'm doing. So now I'm going to go ahead and pin it all round like so, and after pinning, I'm going to head over to my sewing machine to sew it up. Then I'm going to come back to show you guys what it looks like. So after attaching the sleeves, this is what it looks like. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to go ahead and add the band at the center front of the jacket. Okay, so to do that now, I'm going to go ahead and measure all around the jacket like so. Okay, I'm going to take my tape from the hem all the way to the neckline area, then all the way down to the other side like so. And whatever I have, I am going to add about 2 to 3 inches to it, and I'm going to be using that to cut out my band. Okay, so after I was done measuring, I had about 77 inches. Okay, so I'm going to be adding about 2 to 3 inches to that. Okay, and I'm going to be cutting my band on fold with the measurement of 2.5 inches. So when it is not on fold, it is going to be 5 inches. Okay, so this is my band now. I've also went ahead to iron interfacing on it because the fabric is really lightweight. Okay, so now what I'm going to do now is to place it from the hem of my jacket like so, and I'm going to sew it all round, all through my neckline area, all the way to the other side by half an inch. Okay, so I'm going to head over to my sewing machine to do that now, and then I'm going to come back to show you guys what it looks like. So after I was done sewing the band, this is what it looks like. Okay, I've also went ahead to overlock it and I ironed it as well. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and fold the hem by 1.5 inches like so. Okay, so I'm going to head over to my sewing machine to do that now, and then I'm going to come back to show you guys what it looks like. Okay, so here is the fabric for the belt. Also, it is about 120 inches long, and I also went ahead to iron interfacing on it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew it up also, then I'm going to come back to show you guys how it looks on me. Okay, and after I was done, you guys, this is what we have. I really love the outcome of this jacket, and I also went ahead to make a matching pants to pair it with. Now if you've watched this video to this end and you've gained something, please do well to click on the subscribe button, and also don't forget to turn on post notifications so you get notified whenever I post a new video. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.